During the article analysis, the history of labor in the United States, I've read that several stakeholders played significant roles in shaping the labor history that we are going through today. The AFL and the IWW were two labor unions that represented workers and advocated for better working conditions, fair wages, and collective bargaining rights. Employees and corporations were heavily influenced and resisted union efforts, sought to minimize profits, and influence labor policies through laboring and legal actions. The United States government passed legislation such as the Clayton Antitrust Act and the Adamson Act, which addressed the labor issues, antitrust practices, and working hours. The Department of Labor monitored labor conditions. They monitored labor conditions. Social reform workers and activists advocated for workers' rights, child labor laws, and workplace safety. They raised awareness about social injustice and pushed for reforms. Public sentiment influenced labor policies. Consumers boycotted productions associated with unfair labor laws, leading to increased awareness and pressure on companies to improve conditions. During the period of 1986 to 1932, several significant issues challenged marked the history of labor in the United States. Many workers endured long hours, often endured long work days, often spanning 10 to 12 hours or more. The lack of standardized working hours affected the health and well-being of workers and individuals. Factories and mines lacked safety regulations, resulting in hazardous conditions. Workers faced risk of accidents, injuries, and harmful substances throughout this whole entire process. There was a worldwide exploitation of child labor, young children working in factories, mines, and textile mills. These children face gruesome conditions, low pay, and little access to education. Social reforms and labor activists push laws to protect children from these labor practices. Many workers receive measurable pay, barely enough to pay to cover basic necessities. Employers exploited their labor, leading to economic hardship. Lastly, there was a lack of bargaining power to negotiate fair labor laws and benefits. Recommendations that address labor issues during the period 1986 to 1932 in the United States are enforce safety regulations and limited work hours, strict child labors, raising awareness and minimum wage legislation, and empowering unions. Government should establish and enforce safety standards in workplaces. Regular inspections can identify hazards and ensure things go right. The implementation of limited work hours prevents excessive fatigue and promotes workers' well-being. Next, laws should be enacted and enforced to prohibit child labor laws or set age restrictions for employment. Resources should be provided to access education for working children. The public should be educated about harmful effects of child labor laws and encourage support for reform. A minimum wage should be set to ensure workers receive fair compensation for their labor. There should be support for labor unions to negotiate better wages, benefits, and working conditions collectively. One of the overriding issues that significantly hindered the improvement of working conditions and safety during that period was the resistance from employers and corporations. Employers prioritize profits over workers' well-being. They resisted any changes that might reduce production efficiently or increase costs. Many employers actively oppose labor unions. They view the unions as threats to their authority and control over their workforce. Corporations use legal means to suppress union activities, including hiring lawyers to challenge labor laws and court decisions.